Thanks for tuning in to Unbreakable with ChrisChamasiros. I talk about politics, sports, and entertainment to keep you well-rounded, what's going on around the world. If you don't like hearing the truth, definitely don't tune into this channel. So Deion Sanders goes on Asante Samuel's podcast, and he's trying to indicate that the New York Giants are lying about the interview between Shedeur Sanders and the head coach. I think the New York Giants need to call Deion's bluff and release the interview tapes to the public. See, Deion Sanders knows that the New York Giants already said they're not going to release the interview tapes because they didn't want to do anything to hurt Shedeur's career. They wanted to take the higher road. Now, if Deion wants to keep poking at them and saying that the New York Giants have no integrity, the New York Giants should absolutely release the tapes to the public. And if it shows that Deion Sanders is lying, it's time for people to sit down and ask Deion Sanders the tough questions, unlike Asante Samuel and the rest of the times that Deion gets interviewed. And I'm not a New York Giants fan at all. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But if Deion wants to keep questioning the New York Giants' integrity, they should release the tapes. Let's jump into the video.
It's about wins and losses, about the effect that you have on the whole city. In the whole state.
They probably just begging with you, like pleading with you, like, Prime, we know how much you're worth. We can't pay you that much, but we'll give you as much as we possibly can, man. Just please.
It went a little bit like that. Went a little bit like that.
Please, man. Please, man. I'm gonna give you much. I'm taking a pay cut. I'm gonna give you some.
Yeah, he could fill the seats, but he can't win major college bowl games or get into the playoffs or win football games. That's for sure. Because Shedeur Sanders' first year at Colorado, they lost the last 5 games of the season. They went 8-4 the second year and got blown out in the bowl game by BYU, and BYU didn't have one player drafted to the NFL. So what does Deion do? He retires Shedeur's jersey for all of you that didn't know. Hardly accomplishing anything. Deion Sanders and Asante Samuel are acting like what Deion Sanders did is like how Alabama has taken over college football. Now, yeah, did he resurrect the program? To a certain degree. But they haven't accomplished anything.
Come out of my salary.
I never want to go anywhere anyway. Man. So, I know there's a lot of rumors about the next level, and I can't see that. Yeah. I can't see the next level. And I think a couple people who may have taken shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go to that next level. And that's what
Deion Sanders is trying to say that the reason why people were critiquing his kids' tape and play is because Deion wanted to coach in the NFL. Deion, you can't always talk about God and operate in lies because you're lying here. You are clearly lying. Shedeur Sanders, I had Shedeur Sanders a year before the draft even came out. I said he'd be a 4th-round pick. You know why he went in the 5th round? Because he had bad interviews. And I said that Shiloh would be a priority free agent. And that's exactly how it went. You know why? Not because they're black, not because they're confident black men with gold chains, because I watched the all 22 film. I didn't watch highlights like Asante Samuel and racist Ryan Clark from ESPN and the rest of the clown show. I watched the tape, snap after snap after snap, and I saw exactly what the tape showed me. But Deion, he still wants to be in denial, so let's let him go.
Shots came from. All you got to do is just sit back and listen. And
that's all you got to do.
But people don't want to do that. They want to create these narratives and create these stories and then attach them to a kid that ain't never done nothing wrong.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you see your colleagues or your peers going in on you, man? Like, how does that make you feel?
No idea, man. You have no idea. Like,
because I don't think people be understanding, like I got kids too. These are our kids. These are our kids. We're coaches, but
okay, hold on a minute. Football is the most critical sport. You're going to get criticized. If you don't like your kids being criticized, then they shouldn't play football. That's for sure. At all. Ever. Because even the greatest players ever get criticized. So your kids are not above that, Deion and Asante Samuel. I have bad news for you. You should tell your kids you need to toughen up if you're going to play this game mentally, physically, and what people have to say. And you can only control what you can control. And Deion keeps trying to indicate that there's other things why his son Shedeur fell in the draft. Asante, you didn't press Deion at all. You didn't ask him about the BYU bowl game. BYU, not one player drafted to the NFL, absolutely smashed Colorado. You didn't address Shedeur taking the team out to a strip club for 2 days before the game, and the team comes and absolutely shit the bed. You don't address the season before where they lost 5 or 6 games to end the season, and Deion wants you to think that Shedeur is the next Joe Montana. Nobody asked Deion the tough questions. They let him dictate lies. And again, the New York Giants said they weren't going to release the tape. They should release the tape of the interview so everybody could listen. If I'm wrong and it shows Shedeur didn't do that, I will apologize. I'll make a video. But I don't think that I'm wrong whatsoever. I don't believe for a second that the New York Giants organization is lying about Shedeur showing up to the interview, not being prepared. And when he wasn't prepared, the coach of the Giants called him out, and he didn't like that. And then the room shifted where they weren't going to draft Shedeur, and they took Jackson Dart. And that's exactly what happened. But we're going to listen to Deion talk about God as he lies.
Kids, it's a blood.
And stop lying. Like, you got to understand, my kids are built for everything. We had 2 TV shows. Then we had shows in high school with playing football in junior and senior year.
Hold on a minute. They have tape of Deion Sanders and the coaches, Swayze, the strength coach at Colorado, telling Shiloh that if he focused on football, he could be a great player. His whole college career, he was on focus. What does being on TV have to do with your work ethic every day with football? It has absolutely nothing to do with it. And he's trying to indicate, well, my kids were on TV for 2 years, so they're going to know how to handle it. No, they're not. What that makes no, you're doing a reality TV show, and you're comparing that to an interview with a professional sports team who's asking you about a playbook. There's some real disconnect here, Deion.
So we've always been in front of the camera, so they know how to navigate. They know how to handle themselves. Yeah. And you're not going to catch them in no foolery and no mess. You're not going to do that whatsoever. So when you sit up there,
you're not going to catch some foolery. You created all of it, Deion. You said your son would never play for the Browns. The Browns get the 2nd overall pick of the 1st round of the draft. You opened your mouth. You didn't want your son playing in Cleveland. Guess what? God has a sense of humor. Oh, you think you know more than God? No problem. Cleveland Browns don't take him. They take him in the 5th round, and now he's making $20 to $50 million less because of what came out of Deion's mouth, that his son will never play for me. I could have thought that Shedeur Sanders could save the Browns organization, and because his father is so adamant in the public saying my son will never play for the Browns, if I'm the Browns owner, I'd say, you know what? Don't draft him. We don't need it. You want to play that game with me? No problem. I'll call your bluff. We're not drafting your son. If he's still around in the 5th, 6th round and we got to pay him less, that's when we'll take him. And that's exactly what the Cleveland Browns did. Sincerely, a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
And say something like he went in a meeting unprepared. Like, dude, Shedeur Sanders,
he did.
Who's had 6 different coordinators, who has still.
Okay, Shedeur Sanders had 6 different coordinators. And who has been Shedeur Sanders' coach his entire time when he played college football? You, Deion. So why do you keep changing his coordinators and then you're blamed? Well, he had 6 different coordinators. Well, whose fault is that, Deion? You're the head coach of every team you've ever played on. It's like he's just so delusional about the issues that he caused with his own big mouth.
Function and leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're gonna tell me
every situation.
You're gonna tell me he had on headphones, Shedeur.
Every situation. What a situation's that, Asante? That his father, the head coach, got rid of the offensive coordinator every year, 6 of them. Yeah, every situation. The man on the outside was firing those offensive coordinators. Somebody else was getting rid of those offensive coordinators. No, Deion was getting rid of them.
Anybody know my son, understand he's a professional. Like, he's going to go into a meeting with headphones on. Like, y'all, come on. Man.
You know what that tells me, Coach? That tells me somebody was looking for something.
Oh, yeah. The NFL, think about this. Asante Samuel and Deion Sanders want you to believe that the NFL of all places doesn't like a confident black man that wears chains. That is downright laughable. And they're not even embarrassed to say this on camera. We're talking about the NFL. It's just, Deion, you have no shame. None. Neither does Asante Samuel. I will bet my life that Asante Samuel has never watched one full game of Shedeur Sanders all 22 tape along with Shiloh. Not one time. He's watched highlights and listened to what racist Ryan Clark and woke ESPN had to say. Bet my life.
Before they even came there, I was already looking for something.
Oh, yeah.
Looking for an issue.
Yeah.
Plan, you know what I mean? But hey,
those old white men, those old white NFL owners, they were behind every tree and every corner looking for something to give a confident black man a problem to make him slip in the draft. That's what they're saying. Like, it's that you have no shame, Deion. You got none. Zero.
Bygones, bygones. Hey, man, we know you a dog. Your kid's a dog, and dogs gonna always rise to the top. You know what I mean? That's what I believe. You know what I mean?
There you go.
For real. But,
but
we're talking about
it did hurt.
Coach, what you talking about? It hurt.
You know why it hurt? Because Deion created it with his big mouth, and his words came back to bite him, and he cost his son a lot of money. That's why it hurt.
It hurt us. It hurt me. It hurt, Coach.
But you know, the Bible says God uses the foolish things to confound the wise. So it was some foolish stuff that went on. But
here we go. You want to keep bringing up the Bible when you're lying through your teeth, Deion. You're not the one with wisdom here. You're the actual fool. And there's also a passage in the Bible about what comes out of a fool's mouth will trip him up. And that's what happened to you, Deion. But you're flipping it around, acting like you weren't the issue. When the tape don't lie, Deion, but you're lying. I can tell you that right now. You're lying. And then you use the Bible to manipulate it a certain way where you're right. The Bible also talks about a foolish man who says and does foolish things, and it's a snare to him, and he thinks he's wise, but he's not. And that's where you are right now, Deion.
You know what? That gave them something that they needed. Like, that gave them something that they said, all right, you know, that like that.
That's the only part of this I'll agree with Deion Sanders with. His sons, because they're spoiled kids, and they are, and because they've had their job handed to them before the season even started their entire life, this could be the best possible thing for their careers in the NFL, where they're at the bottom and they have to work their way to the top. They have to fight, claw, and scratch to win the job. And yes, that is the best thing for them. So even though God wanted to prove a point to Deion that you don't know more than me, he placed his sons in a position that in the long run, if they stick it out, it's going to make them better. So I'll agree with Deion on that.
Like that edge that Tom had, like that edge, it gave them that edge that you had. It gave them the edge that I have. You know, when folks say we're gonna beat nothing, we weren't gonna beat nothing, but we had to prove that. That gave them the edge that they needed, both of them.
Mm-hmm. He already used to adversity, like I say, come from Jackson State and Colorado, so he built for that stuff. Like you say,
we built for that.
You raised them right, you know what I mean? But like we say, we're talking about Shedeur.
Hold on. When it comes to the interviews, Deion Sanders didn't do a good job of making his sons understand that this is a job interview. In all accounts, and every single source reported that Shedeur went into these interviews like, if y'all don't know who I am, it's on you. You need to know. I don't need to do any of this. He tried to act like his father when his father came out in the draft, because Deion even says it. I would get interviewed by teams that were picking 10th overall in the draft or 8th, and I would get up and walk out of the room and say, I ain't wasting my time. I'll be picked before that anyway. Your sons took the same attitude they learned from you, and it didn't work for them, and now you're blaming everybody else, and that's why I'm making this video. The New York Giants need to call your bluff if you want to keep questioning their integrity and release the tapes of the interview with your son. And then I want to hear somebody ask Deion the tough questions.
I'm going to talk about Colorado, but being that, you know, Shedeur and all the young gunners left or the old gunners left, how much can his team improve, man, from last season? Coming one game short of the Big 12.
Look, I'm not here to talk about Colorado football. I could care less about Colorado football. And the bottom line is this. Shedeur Sanders didn't win anything at Colorado. Didn't even win a bowl game. 8-4's second year, got blown out in the bowl game by BYU. BYU didn't have one player draft to the NFL. Took his entire team to a strip club for 4 days, gets his jersey retired, and Deion Sanders wants you to think that he's Joe Montana or Dan Marino or Tom Brady. That's fine. They're your kids. You can have that perspective. But you can't get mad when real individuals with real integrity break down the tape, look at your son's play, and give it an honest grade. And you can look at my YouTube. I broke down their tape before the draft. A year before the draft, I said, Shedeur Sanders is a 4th round pick. His brother's a priority free agent. You know why Shedeur probably dropped one more round? Because he did bad interviews. The New York Giants need to call Deion's bluff and stop playing this game. Stop taking the high road and say, you know what? You want to question our integrity? No problem. We're going to release the tape of your son during the interview, and we'll go from there. That's exactly what the New York Giants need to do. Thanks for tuning in to Unbreakable with Chris Chamasiros.